My mother was a waitress who gave me everything, so I bought her dream home. Then my estranged father sued to take it away. My name is Arjun, and my entire world is my mother, Priya. My father, Raj, was nothing more than a ghost, a man who abandoned his wife and 8-month-old son for his secretary. He vanished, leaving my mother with nothing but a broken heart and a determination to give me a good life. She worked as a waitress, double shifts on her feet until they swelled, wearing the same faded saris for years. Also, I could have new school books, a warm jacket in the winter, and the occasional treat that made me feel like a normal kid. She shielded me from the harshness of our reality with a fortress of love. I remember her pointing to a beautiful, if slightly run-down, colonial-style house with a wraparound porch on our walk home from school. It was her dream house. She never said it with bitterness, only with a wistful hope that felt like a prayer. My mother said, "One day, beta, maybe." Wouldn't it be lovely to have a garden there? To drink chai on that porch in the morning? That maybe became the engine of my life. I saw her hands raw from washing dishes, and I vowed that maybe would become today. While my friends were out playing, I was in the library, teaching myself to code from discarded computer science textbooks. I started with simple websites, then moved to complex algorithms. My mother thought I was just playing games on the old computer she'd scrimped to buy me. She'd bring me a plate of food, kiss the top of my head, and tell me not to strain my eyes. For 6 years, I worked in secret. I built Hearthverse, a real estate marketplace that used a unique AI to match people not just with houses, but with homes that fit their deepest lifestyle needs. It was my mother's empathy, translated into code. I launched it quietly, and within a year, it caught the eye of a major venture capital firm. I secured a $5 million investment. I was 19 years old. The first thing I did was contact a realtor. The colonial house was still on the market. I bought it and had it fully restored to its original glory, right down to the garden she had imagined. The day I brought her there, I told her I had a surprise. I blindfolded her for the entire drive. When we stopped, I led her gently up a walkway, the scent of jasmine in the air. I untied the blindfold. She stood frozen, staring at the house, her hands flying to her mouth. Then her eyes traveled to the "for sale" sign that now had a bold "sold" sticker across it. I pressed the keys into her hand. My mother said, "Arjun." "What is this? What have you done?" I said, "I bought it, Ma, it's yours." The maybe is over. She didn't scream or jump. She collapsed to her knees on the porch, great heaving sobs racking her body. She pulled me down with her, holding me tighter than she ever had before, her tears soaking my shirt. My mother said, "My boy, my brilliant, beautiful boy, I am so proud of you. Not for this house, but for the man you have become." We moved in that week. Our life was finally peaceful, filled with a joy we had earned 1,000 times over. But peace, I've learned, is often fragile. The news of my success and the story of the waitress's son must have reached my father. One evening, the doorbell rang. There he stood, 20 years older, with a tailored suit and a woman I recognized as the secretary he'd left us for. He had a wide, unfamiliar smile on his face. My father said, "Arjun, my son, look at you." "And Priya?" "You look well." He tried to step inside, but I blocked the doorway. I said, "You are not welcome here." His smile vanished. My father said, "Show some respect. I am your father. I heard about your little business. I'm here to help you manage your finances. A boy your age can't handle that kind of money." His wife nodded, her eyes greedily scanning our home. His wife said, "We are family after all. We should be together now." The audacity was staggering. My mother, usually so gentle, stepped forward. Her voice was quiet, but carried the weight of 2 decades of pain. My mother said, "You were never a father. You were a donor. You left us in the dirt. Get off my porch." I closed the door in his face. We heard him shouting threats through the wood before his car screeched away. A month later, we were served. He was suing me for parental negligence and emotional abandonment, claiming that my success was a result of his good genes and that he was entitled to a substantial portion of my wealth for the pain and suffering of being kept out of my life. The lawsuit was a vile, transparent money grab, but we had to fight. The courtroom was where my father's story finally unraveled. His lawyer painted a picture of a man who had always cared from afar. Our lawyer, a fierce woman named Mrs. Kapoor, then cross-examined him. Mrs. Kapoor said, Mr. Sharma, you claim you always cared. How many birthday cards did you send Arjun? My father stuttered. I lost the address. Mrs. Kapoor said, how much child support did you pay after you abandoned them? My father said, my financial situation was complex. Mrs. Kapoor said, it was zero, wasn't it? Your financial situation was so complex you paid nothing, while Priya Sharma worked 14-hour days to feed your son. Then Mrs. Kapoor presented our evidence. She showed the court my mother's old bank books showing deposits of a few rupees. She showed the landlord's testimony about the eviction notices we'd nearly faced. And then she called me to the stand. Mrs. Kapoor said, Arjun, what did you use to build your company, Hearthverse? I said, public library books, a second-hand computer, and the lessons in resilience and love my mother taught me. I looked directly at my father. I said, the only thing I inherited from you was the determination to never be like you. The judge, a stern man with a weary expression, didn't even wait for closing arguments. He dismissed the case with prejudice, calling it frivolous and morally reprehensible. He then awarded my mother full legal costs. As we walked out of the courthouse, my father tried to approach us one last time, his face a mask of fury and defeat. He had nothing left to say. We walked past him without a glance into the sunlight, into the life we had built for ourselves, a life founded not on blood, but on boundless love and unbreakable strength. But my father's humiliation knew no bounds. A year later, he and his wife attempted a corporate espionage scheme, trying to steal the core algorithm of Hearthverse to launch a rival platform. The digital war that followed, filled with hackers, private investigators, and a final shocking confrontation at a tech summit, tested the very limits of my company and my loyalty to my mother. Before you see how I protected my mother's legacy from his final desperate attack, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tap the notification bell, because the battle for our future was the most dangerous one yet. The victory in court should have been the end. The judge's gavel had felt like a period at the end of a 20-year sentence of struggle. My mother Priya and I settled into the rhythm of our new life in her dream home. Hearthverse wasn't just a company. It was a phenomenon, revolutionizing how people found homes. We were preparing for a massive Series B funding round that would value the company at over $500 million. But a snake, even when beaten back, does not change its nature. My father, Raj, and his wife, Anjali, were not defeated. They were festering. Their humiliation had curdled into a venomous obsession. They weren't just after money anymore. They were after our entire legacy. The first sign was subtle. A key algorithm in our matching system, the very heart of Hearthverse, began behaving erratically. It was suggesting completely illogical properties to users, studio apartments to families of 6, mansions to college students. Our tech team was baffled. It was as if the AI was having a stroke. I spent 3 sleepless nights digging through millions of lines of code. My mother bringing me coffee and food, her face etched with the same worry I remembered from our leanest years. Finally, I found it. Not a bug, but a breach. A sophisticated hidden backdoor had been inserted into our system. Someone was tampering with the core logic. I called Mrs. Kapoor, our lawyer, and a new ally, a stoic, brilliant cybersecurity expert I'll call Silas. We set a trap. We created an isolated honeypot server that mirrored our live system, filled with fake but tantalizing data and a dummy version of our core algorithm. Then we waited. They took the bait. Silas tracked the digital fingerprints straight to a shell corporation, registered in another city, which was funded by another shell corporation. The trail was convoluted, but the destination was unmistakable. It led back to an office park 10 minutes from my father's home. He wasn't even trying that hard to hide it. His arrogance was his weakness. He had hired a team of black hat hackers to infiltrate Hearthverse, steal the AI, and launch a cheap copycat platform to sink us before our funding round. But we had something he didn't: my mother's wisdom. My mother said, Arjun, he always tries to take the fruit, but he never understands the tree. He wants your code, but he doesn't have your heart. That was the key. My father saw Hearthverse as a piece of software. I had built it as an extension of my mother's love, her ability to understand exactly what people needed. He could steal the code, but he could never replicate its soul. We decided we wouldn't just stop him. We would use his own attack to destroy him. Silas and I worked on a counter-operation we called Project Phoenix. The plan was twofold. First, we embedded a silent call home protocol within the dummy algorithm in the honeypot. If anyone tried to use it, it would secretly transmit all their data, client lists, and internal communications directly back to us. Second, I personally redesigned the real Hearthverse algorithm, making it even more powerful and intricately tied to our unique datasets, rendering any stolen version obsolete and useless. Weeks passed. The Global Tech Summit, the most prestigious event in the industry, was approaching. I was scheduled to give a keynote speech about the future of Hearthverse. We knew my father's new company, Nexus Home, was planning a surprise launch at the same summit, using our stolen code. The day of the summit arrived. The auditorium was packed with thousands of people, including journalists and investors from all over the world. My mother sat in the front row, a calm, proud presence. Backstage, my hands were steady. I was no longer a boy defending his mother. I was a CEO defending his life's work. I gave my talk, showcasing Hearthverse's growth and our vision for a future where no one would feel homeless. As I finished, the moderator opened the floor for questions. A man stood up. It was my father's lead hacker, planted in the audience. The plant said, "Mr. Sharma, isn't it true that your core AI is fundamentally flawed? And that a new platform, Nexus Home, is about to launch with a superior, more stable version?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. This was their moment. They wanted to publicly embarrass me and launch their stolen product on our stage. I smiled. That's a fascinating question. In fact, I've heard of Nexus Home. Let's take a look at it, shall we? I nodded to Silas in the control booth. The main screen behind me, which had displayed the Hearthverse logo, now split into two. On one side was the Nexus Home landing page. On the other, a live feed of data. I said, "This is Nexus Home." Their CEO is a man named Raj Sharma, who also happens to be my biological father, a man who abandoned my mother and me 20 years ago and recently lost a lawsuit trying to steal my money. The gasps in the room were audible. Cameras started flashing wildly. I said, "He believed he could steal my work. So let's see what he built." I clicked a button on my remote. The screen now showed a side-by-side code comparison. On the left, our dummy algorithm from the honeypot. On the right, the Nexus Home source code we were receiving live via our call home protocol. They were identical line for line. I said, "As you can see, it's a perfect copy." Because it is a copy, hacked and stolen from our servers. My father, who was watching from the wings, his face purple with rage, started shouting. My father said, "He's lying." "It's my code." "He stole from me!" Security began to converge on him. I continued, my voice calm and clear, amplified for the whole world to hear. I said, "But a stolen heart cannot beat. The code they stole was a poisoned gift." I clicked again. The screen now showed a live map of the world. Dozens of red dots appeared, representing Nexus Home's clients, all fake identities we had created. I said, "Every user who signs up for Nexus Home is now feeding all their data, and the data of Nexus Home itself, directly to us. Their business model, their investor lists. It's all right here." I displayed a real-time scroll of their internal company emails, including one from my father to Anjali. My father said, "Email. Once we launch, his funding will evaporate. The boy will be finished. We'll finally have what should have been ours from the beginning." The audience was in an uproar. The humiliation was absolute. I delivered the final blow. I said, "But this is not the real Hearthverse. The real Hearthverse is this." I showcased the newly upgraded, truly powerful algorithm, explaining features the stolen version could never hope to replicate. I said, "This is protected by something you can never steal. Mr. Sharma, it's protected by a mother's love, by the struggle of her sacrifices, and by a truth you will never understand, that building something is infinitely more powerful than taking it." Security escorted my father and Anjali from the building, their screams of protest drowned out by the roaring applause of the audience. Nexus Home was dead on arrival, a laughingstock in the tech world. Their investors pulled out immediately, and the ensuing lawsuits from their own backers for fraud and misrepresentation bankrupted them completely. A week later, sitting on the porch of her dream home, my mother held my hand. The scent of jasmine was sweeter than ever. My mother said, "When you were a baby, I prayed for you to be safe and happy. I never dreamed you would become my shield." I said, "You are always mine, Ma. You are my foundation. Everything I build will always be on the land you fought for." We learned that the greatest battles aren't fought with fists or lawsuits, but with integrity, preparation, and an unbreakable bond. My father tried to steal our future, but in his greed, he only succeeded in cementing our legacy. He is now a ghost, not just in our lives, but in the industry he tried to conquer. And we are just getting started.